What does compassion look like to you? Now you can answer. I'm the kind of guy that stands up here and gives you thoughts. I'm not going to preach at you today. I want you to... No? Nothing? Try it in Spanish? If I speak in Spanish, maybe the microphone will work. Okay. So, anybody, what does compassion look like to you? What? Spent time spent serving. Okay? Grace. Now that right there, grace is a whole sermon, a whole weekend event just in itself. So, who wants to try and follow that? Google defines compassion as sympathetic pity and concerns for the sufferings and misfortunes of others. Webster says, sympathetic consciousness of others' distress together with the desire to alleviate it. So if you see someone in pain or in distress, you feel a heartfelt desire, and maybe you'll just get up off your couch and help them. Right? So how does God define compassion? Well, let's find out. Where do we find the definition in God's dictionary of compassion? What is God's dictionary? Yeah, the Bible. And I'm going to go through the slides right now because this is not the one I wanted. Okay. In 1 Corinthians 13, I'm going to start with verse 4 and then go to 8 and then skip a couple and read the last one or two. Love is patient. Love is kind. Love does not envy. Love does not boast. It is not proud. It does not dishonor others. It is not self-seeking. It is not easily angered. It keeps no records of wrongs. Love does not delight in evil, but rejoices with the truth. It always protects, always trusts, always hopes, always perseveres. Love never fails. Verse 13. And now these three remain: faith, hope, and love. Faith in Jesus, hope in Jesus' salvation, and the love of God. But the greatest of these is love. Love trumps everything. Now, if you don't take anything else away from this sermon today, this is what you need to understand. God's love trumps everything. Everything. Now I want to tell you a story. I call it a story because, well, I wasn't there. And I've never read it the way I'm going to tell it. There are facts in my story. You'll be able to pick them out. But as in all my stories, I take complete creative license. Okay? That's my liability waiver. That's my disclaimer. Now, it happened a long time ago. God was sitting in their office, talking, planning, trying to come up with something, and all at once God said to each other, let's create something. Now, why did God have the desire to create? Well, I'll tell you. God had the desire to create because God is... Oh, come on. Because God is love. God is full of love. God would not exist without love. Therefore, I wouldn't be up here telling you about God's love if God didn't exist. I wouldn't be up here talking to you because you wouldn't be here either. God created us, and not only did they create us, but God said to each other, they said, you know what we need to do, what we should really do? We should create these human beings, as they'll call themselves, in our image. Why would God do that? Why would he want something in his own image that he would create? Anybody know? She said the perfect word, relationship. God wanted something to have a relationship with because he is. So God, I think I've got this right. God, there he is. God created the earth. God created a place. He created Adam and Eve. He created them and put them in a garden. Oops, getting a little ahead of my story. Now, I still haven't talked about compassion. I've talked about love, but I haven't talked about compassion yet. Now, God is still in his office. They're still talking amongst each other. And they said, you know what we need to do? We need to give them the power of choice. What? So they could choose something besides us? Well, yeah, they could. We need to give them that choice. Why? Why would God create something that would have the power to turn against him? I don't get it. It's because I don't know God's compassion. I know that God loves me, but I don't understand God's compassion. Now, still in their office, still talking amongst each other, God says, well, what if they do? What if they choose something else? Because we all know that that something else was already there, right? Okay? If we kind of think about the chronologically of events happening before we happened, the something else, the evil, let's call it what it is, was already out there. Okay? Otherwise, there wouldn't have been a choice. Right? So, what happens if these human beings created in God's image with the power of choice? What happens if they choose evil? Well, No hesitation. We're going to call him the Son because we have to identify God. We understand that there are three God. Okay? Notice, three singular. There's the Father, the Son, and the Spirit. Okay? So the Son says, hey, if this happens, I will go down and redeem them. That right there is compassion. If they choose against God, God will come down and buy us back. That is compassion. So we all know the story. Adam and Eve made their choice. It wasn't a good choice. And if I read the story right, as soon as Adam took the bite of the fruit, which is just the symbol of his choice, as soon as Adam made that choice, he knew, he felt, he understood there was something wrong. He understood God's not as close as he used to be. Maybe I'm not as close to God as I used to be. So what did he do? He goes, whoa, I'm naked. I'm going to go hide behind a bush. Well, God comes and hangs out around 7:30 after dinner to have worship with him every night. Don't you think that God's going to find him? Don't you think God knows where he is? Come on.
No doubt.
No doubt. No doubt. Adam, in that one single choice, had separated himself so much from God that he forgot that God sees everything. So God comes down and plays along with Adam's little game. So Adam, where are you? Where are you? Pretty soon Adam's going, I'm right here. I messed up. Oh, whoa, how do you know you messed up? Well, I ate the fruit. What? Well, this woman you gave me, and that's a whole different sermon. And God turned to the woman and said, explain. God already knew, right? So she explained, well, there was a snake, and he was talking to me. And I was so curious. And that is the point where we, in our everyday lives, think it's okay to blame others. That's where it started. Live your life carefree, do whatever you want. I can blame somebody else. I can always blame Becky, right? No. She will make me own my own stuff. And I love her for that. Okay. Adam and Eve are carrying on, and later on, God looks down upon the earth, and he sees that the earth is evil. Every thought of man is evil continuously. Not just a flying thought here and there. They are evil continuously. And God says, you know what? This is not how we planned it. This is not the way things are supposed to be. let's go down there, wipe them all out, start with a clean slate, and do it over again. Maybe make them a little smarter. So God goes and he finds a guy that lives in the trees in the forest next to a nice meadow, a far distance from any body of water, and says to Noah, now pardon me right here because a lot of times I get Moses and Noah mixed up, just the names, not the people. So God talks to Noah and he says, Noah, I'm going to wipe out the earth. Completely wipe them out. But I'm going to provide a way of salvation for the ones that choose to follow me. I want you to build a big giant boat over here in the meadow, a long distance away from any body of water. Now, you got to understand a little thing about Noah. He ran around his neighborhood, his town, and the surrounding villages, and it was talking about a God named Jehovah, right? He talked about God all the time because he loved God, and he wanted everybody else to love God too. So everybody else thought he was crazy. He was the crazy guy that talks about Jehovah. So God wants him to build an ark, a big boat, a far distance away from any body of water. Don't they think he's crazy enough already? Okay. So Noah builds the ark. He goes inside. All these animals come inside for no reason. All these animals just walk in there and the door closes. The door closes by itself. I mean, you got a big boat like that can hold all these people. You got a pretty good sized door. I mean, it's not just like a bifold closet door, right? It's got to be a pretty big door. And everybody and everything that has chosen to go in the ark, I think Noah came out one more time and says, come on, guys. It can't be just us. God loves you. And they go, yeah, whatever, old man. And he goes back inside, and God closes the door. Closes the door. He tests the people in the ark for 7 days. Nothing for 7 days. And then on the seventh day, what happens? The earth erupted. The clouds just let it go. Torrential rains, water from above, water from below, for a week. Right? For 40 days. Now, when I was a kid, living in Oregon, my mom said that there was a time in Oregon where it rained for 40 days and 40 nights. My dad was building a boat. That's a lot of rain. Even in our standards, that's a lot of rain. But this water came from everywhere and covered the earth. There's one for the kids. So they floated around in this boat with all these smelly animals. Talk about a test of fortitude. For a while, and then God provided salvation from their salvation. So they went along, they sent out a couple of birds, they finally got out of the ark. They built an altar of gratitude And God gave them a symbol which we call the rainbow. And wrong guy. I have seen rainbows around here that are pretty beautiful. I've gone across the mid-state plains and saw the storms along the side and looked back towards the setting sun and have seen a full circle rainbow in the sky. Full circle with no end. Beautiful. God gave us a natural phenomenon. You want to tear it apart. It's a natural phenomenon of light hitting water particles called a rainbow to promise there would be never, ever, ever again a flood of water to destroy the whole earth. Never going to happen again. So it can rain as much as it wants to around here. I'm okay with that. Now, there's another guy. Whoops, I didn't get that picture in there. Okay. I had a picture of the Israelites. Nope. Ooh. Way ahead of the story. The Israelites, the Hebrews, I mean, kind of a long time down the spectrum here. The Hebrews have been in captivity for 400 years, and God came to Moses and said, enough is enough. This is my people. I have promised that this is my people. We're going to leave this place and we're going to inherit the land that I told your great-great-great-great-grandfather that his people were going to inherit. So, there's Moses. Read the story. The story of Moses is the most awesome story in the book. Except Joseph. I like Joseph. He's pretty cool. They come up against the sea, the Red Sea, with the Egyptians following because the Pharaoh said, oh man, I made a mistake. Who's going to finish my pyramid? And I'm going to go get them. So they got the Red Sea in front of them. They can't swim across. They got the Egyptian army behind them. And in between here standing Moses with his shepherd's rod in his hand going, Lord, you didn't bring us out here to drown us in the river, in the lake. You didn't bring us out here to be destroyed by they could have done that back there. What's going on? So, as it's depicting in this picture, need a new projector. As it's depicting in this picture, God told Moses, put your rod across the water. I will perform a miracle and save you. Because I love you. Not only did God create a way for the Israelites to get across in safety, but he also destroyed the Egyptian army so they wouldn't have that threat again later on. Okay? Compassion. Compassion. I could tell you stories in the Old Testament about compassion. I'm going to tell you one story. There was, at this time, schools of the prophets. They weren't cheap. But there was a kid that wanted his whole life to go to the school of the prophets. He and his family could not afford it. He couldn't even afford an axe. But the church got together and created a fund, and they provided a way for him to go to the school of prophets. Now, the school of prophets was getting big, so they wanted to build a bigger one. So they went out in the woods. First they went and got permits. They went out in the woods. They cut a bunch of trees down. Before they went out, this guy, the night before, went over to his friend and said, you know what? I want to help with this building of the new school, but I don't have an axe. Could I borrow yours? He said, make sure you bring it back. Okay? So remember that. So he goes, oh, thank you very much. He runs over there. Next day they get up and they go out there and they cut all these trees down. And as he's cutting the tree down next to the river, his axe head flies off and lands in the water. Far enough out so he can't just reach over and get it. And he is devastated. So he goes to Elijah or Elisha, probably Elisha, I think it's Elisha, and he says, this is a borrowed axe. I have to take it back. And the axe head is in here in the river. What do I do? So the prophet says, oh, let's just, don't worry about it. We'll just go home. We'll get another. No. The prophet says, let's kneel down right here next to the river and we'll ask God's help. God's help. God will help us. Why would God help him? Because he loves them. So they prayed, and the prophet says to somebody else, cut me a stick. So he cut him a stick about this long, throws it out there in the water. The stick bloop, right down in the water, and then floats up. The axe head floats up right next to it. The kid reaches out and picks it up, puts it back on his axe handle, and they finish the day. When he goes home, goes to his friend's house to return that axe, he tells him the story. I guarantee you he tells him that story. Because God is full of compassion. Now, long time down the road, the earth is pretty messed up. Nobody understands what love is, much less what God's love is, which we've already discussed. As far as I'm concerned, God's love is compassion. So, what happens? In Bethlehem, got a pretty big hint right up on the screen. So what happens? Way back there in that office, they're talking about creating humans with the power of choice, and if they choose against us, I will go down and redeem them. This is where that culminates. Jesus came to this earth and he showed people his Father's love. He said, this is not me. This is my Father. I don't do anything unless the Father tells me it's okay to do it. Not even feeding people that have been sitting there all day listening to him, forgot about eating because Jesus was so interesting to listen to. Jesus spoke to them about the Father's compassion. And at the end of the day, he gave them a portion of God's compassion in fish and bread. He fed them so much. Okay, how many people were there? 6,500 people. It said that there were 5,000 men, because those are the only ones important enough to count. I told the story in the school about the boy that brought the lunch. He told his mom, I want to go listen to Jesus today because Jesus is going to be speaking out there on the hillside. I want to go. And his mom said, well, that's fine because the whole town is going. We're all going to go see Jesus. But let's pack you a lunch first because it may be all day. I've heard the man talk. It's going to be all day. You're going to get hungry, so let's pack you a lunch. So, what did he pack? Or what did his mom pack for him? A little louder, because I don't remember the numbers. 5 loaves of bread. The guy must have liked bread. There had to have been some mayonnaise along with it. 5 loaves of bread and 2 fish. 5 loaves. You got to understand, 5 loaves of bread and 2 fish. 5 biscuits and 2 fish. At the end of the day, Jesus says, hey, these people are getting hungry. Or maybe it was the disciples that said, hey, these people are getting hungry. And Jesus said, okay, have them sit down, and I'm going to feed them. And Andrew says, what? We don't have enough money to go into town to buy enough. Matter of fact, there's nobody in town to buy anything from. They're all here. What are we going to do? And Jesus says, well, do you know anybody that brought food? And Andrew goes, there's this kid over here that brought his lunch. Bring it to me. What? He comes, brings it out, and he lifts up the cloth that's covered, and he goes, it's only 5 little biscuits and 2 fish. How's that going to feed all these people? Just have them sit down. So what does Jesus do? What did he do? He asked his father to bless the food. His father blessed the food. His father multiplied those 5 biscuits and 2 little minnows to feed approximately 6,500 people. Why? He had compassion. He had compassion. Jesus was showing these people that the Father, who you have been told is more interested in your sacrifices. By the way, I don't think that those people knew what the sacrifices meant. I don't read anywhere in the last part of in the first part of the book, the New Testament, that says these sacrifices are pointing forward to Jesus, life and sacrifice and salvation for you. I don't read that anywhere, so I don't think they understood what the sacrifices were for, but they were compelled, and I use that term lightly, they were prodded to come and give their sacrifices. Because God needs your sacrifice. That's what they've been told. So Jesus spent 3.5 years. 3.5 years. I am sure that Jesus wanted to have more time. He spent 3.5 years trying to help his people understand the compassion that their Father has for them. Not just a Father of love, but a Father of compassion. He went so far as to lay down his life, not just to lay down his life. He died the most physically cruel death, and this picture is very kind. He died the most physically cruel death known to man. And man, that was the killers at the time, were the Romans, and they were pretty imaginative about killing people. You got to understand, Jesus lived his life for one purpose. Lived his life to show people the Father's compassion. He sacrificed himself. And I say sacrificed because that's the point of the sacrificial system, was this right here. He sacrificed himself to show the Father's compassion. Now, that's not the end of the story. A few days later, Jesus, being what he is, and I say is because he's alive today, he is God. He was God when he was here. He was God when he was in his office talking to God. He is God right now. He is God when he comes to, there's that one right there. He is God when he shows up like this. He is God at the end of the 1,000 years. He is God at the end of eternity. And I'm going to be there with him. Now, I have to go back to my notes because I don't even know where I am. All right. Oops, wrong way. In this whole scenario, in this whole history that I have just given you, we still have the power of choice. We still have the power to choose this and this and this, we still have the power. Not very smart, but we still have the power to choose evil. And God still has the compassion to save me from my own choice. Right? God gave me the freedom to make a choice. Right? And in this text, God calls us to freedom. But don't use your freedom to indulge flesh. Use this freedom that I'm giving you to serve others. How? To serve others in love. To serve others in compassion. How, if I'm running around serving other people, how is that free? Well, I already talked about that. Oops, I'm going backwards. Yeah, that's good. Well, that's it. Okay. I'll tell you what. A friend sent me a video this last week. And on this video, I believe that God told this friend to send me this video. Because in this video, there's a guy talking, and he gave me the answer to how serving others means freedom. The video was entitled, "What is the most evil one-lettered word in the English language?" I want, I have, you give it to me because it's what I want. But at the end of the video, he says, when we're children, we are taught to be selfish. Hear me out. We are taught that when we cry, we get what we want. Right? Wah, I get food. Wah, I get my diaper changed. And as we're growing up, the wah changes to, I want this, and if we whine enough, we'll get what we want. So when we get old enough to have a boyfriend or a girlfriend, all we have to do is say, I want, and if we don't get, we'll go get another one. We get married. We learn to be selfish. I want to be happy. I want to be satisfied. I want a new car. I want a bigger house. I want children. Which in a way is not really selfish. But anyway. We get in our jobs. I want more money. I want an easier job with more money. I want to work somewhere else. I want to work in the corner office with windows all around with air conditioning, with more money. We come to church. God, I want you to, right? I want you to forgive me because next week I'm going to go out and do the same thing. And you know what God does? He forgives us because He has compassion. He loves us. Okay. Why don't we think instead of I, think of you? If I want somebody to give me charity, I may not get charity because not everyone else out there is wanting to serve me, right? And they might not give me the charity I want. But when I give charity, who's going to stop me? If I want respect from other people may not respect me because they're not all out there to respect and serve me. But if I want to give respect, who's going to stop me? If I want love from other people, I may not get it because other people want me to love them, and they're too busy wanting love to not give me love. But if I give love, who's going to stop me? That's where the freedom comes in of serving others. You can serve others all of your life. Who's going to stop you? Who's going to stop you? I guarantee you, God's not going to stop you. I can guarantee you the person on the street that you're handing a sandwich to is not going to stop you. Right? I can guarantee that your own conscience is not going to stop you. That is freedom. That is the freedom that we gain because we are tasting the compassion that God has for us. So when we leave this building, we need to stop thinking about what others can do for us. We need to stop thinking about what God can do for us, because can't see it. See what happens? It's not going to work. Because God has already done everything that He can do for us. He has provided us through Jesus' life a picture of what His compassion is to us. He has provided through Jesus' sacrifice a picture of what His compassion wants to do for us. He has provided through the prophecies and the promises that we have that He will return for the purpose, the only purpose, to live forever with us. That, my friends, is compassion. God has made this choice because God is full of compassion. God has made the choice to redeem me. No matter how many times I choose evil, He still says, Chuck, you're my son. You're my son. Every time that you choose evil, God says, you're my child. You are my child. I want to live with you. So, when we leave this place today, I want you to remember that God, even though we will make the wrong choice at some time or another, because I can guarantee you the mind is strong but the flesh is weak. I can guarantee you we're going to make a mistake sooner or later. And I can guarantee you when you turn around and say, God, I am so sorry, He's going to say, child, you are forgiven. I love you. I want you to be with me. Let's bow our heads. Dear Lord, thank you for having the compassion that you have. Thank you for being with us even though we choose not to be with you at times. Thank you for calling us your children. In Jesus' name, amen.